Om Jnana Timandasya Jnanjala Shalakaya Sakshu Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shigurave Namah. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namini. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurapani Pacharini Nirvashesha Srinyavadi Paskataya Desatarani. So we continue discussing Nectar of Instruction, Upadesamrita. We are presently discussing the third verse, Utsaha Nisaya Daryat Tat Tat Karma Pravartanat. Sangha Tyagat Saturvrite Sadbir Bhaktir Prashidati. There are 6 principles favorable to the execution of pure devotional service. First, being enthusiastic, utsaha, and then daryat, endeavoring with confidence. 3 is being patient, being patient is daryat, acting with consequence, acting with confidence is nishayat. Srila Prabhupada said these 3, utsaha, nishaya, daryat, the formula for success, whatever you want to do in spiritual life or in material life. And then we start discussing tat karma pravartanat. The tat karma pravartanat are the activities that we do in devotional service. And in the purport, we have discussed that, and Srila Prabhupada refers to the verse spoken by Prahlad Maharaj, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vannam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam. So these are the 9 angas of devotional service. These 9 angas. And we have been discussing for last weeks the first 2 of these angas, Shravanam, hearing about Krishna and his holy name. And since 2 weeks we have been discussing Kirtana, the chanting of the Lord's glories, or chanting of the holy name. And today we will discuss the last part of this Kirtanam. And that's a very important part, because the chanting of the holy name must be done in an appropriate way to be successful. And so Srila Prabhupada explains this in this purport. Says, while chanting the holy name of the Lord, one should be careful to avoid 10 offenses. From Sanat Kumar, it is understood that even if a person is a severe offender in many ways, he is freed from offensive life if he takes shelter of the Lord's holy name. Indeed, even if a human being is no better than a 2-legged animal, he will be liberated if he takes shelter of the holy name of the Lord. One should therefore be very careful not to commit offenses at the lotus feet of the Lord's holy name. And then Srila Prabhupada goes on by discussing these 10 offenses. The offenses are described as follows. A. To blaspheme a devotee, especially a devotee engaged in broadcasting the glories of the holy name. So that is the first offense against the holy name. So this is a principle. If we want to love Krishna, then we have to understand who Krishna is. Krishna is everything. We are also part of Krishna. We are part and parcels of Krishna. So you cannot love Krishna and not loving his part and parcels. Especially the part and parcels who agree to cooperate with Krishna. These are devotees. We should very much respect them and not blaspheme them. We will learn in text 5 of Nectar of Instruction. There, 3 classes of devotees are described. And there it is said, the highest devotee is one who is engaged in undeviated devotional service, always engaged in devotional service, and who is completely devoid of the propensity to criticize others. That does not mean that we have to give up our propensity to be critical with things, but we should not criticize devotees. That's a very dangerous activity. Because in the scriptures we get examples from that. Prajapati Daksha offending Lord Shiva. And why does one commit these offenses? It's because of ignorance. Because Daksha could not understand the spiritual position of Lord Shiva. He taught Lord Shiva to be an ordinary living being. He taught him to be his son-in-law. But he could not understand Lord Shiva's position because he was too proud. His conscience was covered, and what happens with one's conscience is covered by lust? Avitam jnanam etena jnanina nityavarina. Kamrupena kontra dusprenanalinacham. The verse from Bhagavad Gita in the 3rd chapter that explains Avitam jnatam etena. When one becomes proud, which is a kind of lust, it covers one's intelligence. One cannot understand one's own position and not the position of others. So many times we commit offenses out of ignorance. So the blasphemy of devotees is called the mad elephant offended by Lord Chaitanya. It destroys all your spiritual advancement. It blocks it. So we should always be very friendly with the devotees and be their servant. If one is in a managerial position, one has to correct sometimes, but that is not blasphemy. The correction is done to help the devotee to advance further in Krishna consciousness. So the motivation is important. So blasphemy is a very dangerous. Now the second offense is to consider the name of Lord Shiva of any demigod to be equally as powerful as the holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. No one is equal to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, nor is anyone superior to him. So that's important. One commits this offense because one does not understand who is Lord Shiva, who is Lord Brahma, who is the demigods, who is Krishna. That should be clearly understood. In the, it is mentioned that in the Padma Purana that Krishna has 4 unique qualities that is Lila Madhurya. He exhibits beautiful pastimes for the pleasure of his devotees. Is Bhakta Madhurya. He interacts with loving devotees in intimate ways. Is Venu Madhurya. He plays on his divine flute. And Rupa Madhurya. His beautiful form is incomparable, unrivaled in all existence. So these are unique qualities of Krishna. These 4 that now when it should be understood that Krishna is Krishna's to Bhagavan Swayam. It is mentioned in the Bhagavatam, Ete Shamsa Kalapumsa Krishna's to Bhagavan Swayam. Krishna is the fountainhead of all. Krishna is a fountainhead of all other incarnation. That the source. Of course, we are speaking about expansions. That in the material world, we think that one thing as a beginning and it's the source of another thing. But that doesn't exist in the spiritual world because everything is eternal. So the first expansion of Krishna is Balaram. And Balaram then expands in all the Vishnu forms. But these Vishnu forms, they come not from Krishna. No, they are eternally an expansion of Krishna. That in the material world, one thing comes from another. Therefore, the principle of expansion is different. That should be understood. All the incarnations of Krishna are eternal. And they appear sometimes manifest, not manifest. It is said in Brahma Samhita, yeah. Ramadi Murtishu Kaleni Amena Tishtan. There are innumerable incarnations of Krishna, like Ram and others. That so it has no end. We can only mention a few but when we worship Krishna, then all the other worship is perfected. Just as one gives water to a root of a tree, the branches become satisfied. So when we worship Krishna, all other worship is covered. That demigods, they give only limited results. But worship of Vishnu yields all results. If materialists can understand this truth, then they take to Vishnu worship and achieve all results. So when in Krishna Balaram in Vrindavan, when they were installed by local Brahmins, that they were doing the deity installation because the Krishna Balaram temple was known as the English temple. and the residents of Vrindavan would not accept it as bona fide unless the deity was installed by local Brahmins. So they were doing the installation, and the devotees were chanting the holy name. So, but Prabhupada considered the chanting of the holy name to be the essence of the installation. And the Brahman's ritualistic installation was just an obligation. So it is important for us to distinguish what's important, what's essential in our daily activities. To help us advance in our devotional service, this devotional service helps us to connect with Krishna, the source of everything. So yes, what is offensive? Offensive is to directly worship the demigods. Sometime in Vrindavan, there is no Vrindavan, they worship the demigods also. But they know they are worshipping the demigods, but they see them as intermediate, because they know these demigods worship, they offer everything to Krishna. It's like you do a sacrifice and you have a priest, and the priest is doing the sacrifice on behalf of you who are sponsoring the sacrifice. So the demigods are like that. We are offering to the demigods. The demigods are offering it to Krishna. So they have the right understanding. But directly worship demigods, like also Mayavadis sometimes do, that will just, the scripture said, that will just shorten one's life. And to think that the demigods are independent of Lord Vishnu is a big offense. Because the demigods' power comes from Krishna. They have no independent power. Therefore, Grihasthas, they should give up all rules which include demigod worship, because that's aimed for sense gratification. So yes, of course we are speaking in the second offense about the holy name, but the holy name is Krishna. That it's not different. Therefore, yes, all our activities are meant to please Krishna. It's explained in the Bhagavatam. Ata pumbir tvya shvesta varnashrama vibhagasa spanustitasya dharmasya samsiddhir aridoshanam. The best among the twice born, it is concluded that the highest perfection one can achieve by discharging the duties prescribed for one's occupation to cast the visions and orders of life is to please the personality of Godhead, Hari Toshan. So the Grihastha follows the rules of his varna until he is elevated to bhava. Then one can give up these rules. Bhava is a preliminary stage of Godhead. Yeah. So another offense is not accepting the Lord as supreme. It means considering his name is different from the Lord and accept the name on a material level. So this is a concept of duality, and it's offensive. When we chant at the stage of namabhas, that means anartha nivriti, that if anartha nivriti starts only when we give up these 10 offenses. Otherwise, the heart doesn't become purified by the chanting of the holy name. All potencies are in the holy name, but they will not manifest. So if one chants in Namabas or Anartanivrita, this conception is unconsciously still there, that the name is different from Krishna. And that is there unconscious, no? Because we lack knowledge. We are lacking faith. But of course, when we come to prema, that misconception is gone. So the remedy to get rid of this anartha, seeing the name and Krishna different, it can be removed if we follow the instructions of a bona fide guide, bona fide spiritual master, who teaches us sadhana bhakti. And then Jalli, the Sudanam, the pure name, is revealed. This is what Bhakti Vinod Thakur says. Not. So when a Vaishnava respects the demigods, and does not criticize. So here we are again. That happens here. That internet sometimes fails. I'm on a hotspot now of a mobile. Let's see how long it goes. So yes, we were discussing this second offense, that of course it is important also that we understand Krishna's position. Krishna has 64 qualities, and Lord and the Vishnu expansions of Krishna. Okay, we are there again, hopefully for a little longer. So I was explaining that it is important to understand that Krishna has these 64 qualities. Lord Vishnu has 60 qualities. And Lord Shiva, he has 55 qualities. Like Lord Shiva is also all cognizant in the material world. And we learn that in the third canto, when Diti approached Kashyapa Muni for union to have children at an inauspicious time. And that's an offense. And Diti afterwards felt regret, but she was praying for the mercy of Lord Shiva, because Lord Shiva he knew what happened. Because her sister is the wife of Lord Shiva. So Lord Shiva knows everything what's going on in the material world, practically like the super soul, but it's only the material world. It's all cognizant. But there's a difference between Shiva, Vishnu, and Shiva. This is from a conversation between Prabhupada and devotees on the position of Lord Shiva. They asked Srila Prabhupada, is Shiva equal to Krishna? Prabhupada smiled and explained that Lord Shiva is Krishna, but in one sense not Krishna. And he gave the example how curd comes from milk. In that sense, it's non-different from milk. So is Lord Shiva, is Krishna in contact with the material nature. But then the devotees asked, but has Shiva the same powers? And Prabhupada finally said, no, Lord Shiva cannot give you liberation. And that is an important aspect to understand, that Lord Shiva is in a special category, Shiva Tattva. And Shiva is responsible for the destruction in the material world, that the mode of ignorance. That is his function. That, but the origin of Lord Shiva is Sadashiva. Sadashiva resides in the Brahmajyoti, between the spiritual world and the material world. And that Sadashiva is the source of all Shivas in all the universes. And that Sadashiva is Vishnu Tattva. It has 60 qualities. Interesting. That you can learn from Brihad Bhagavatamrita from Sanatana Goswami, that Gop Kumar travels to the Brahmajyoti and meets Sadashiva. So Shiva has this special a special tattva, a different tattva, is between Vishnu tattva and Shiva tattva. And then the demigods, they are living entities like us. Well, like us and not like us, because they are jivas, spirit souls, part and parcels of Krishna, like us. But the demigods, so the jiva has 50 qualities. They are described in Nectar of Devotion. I remind you, we are discussing Nectar of Instruction, which is a summary in 11 verses of the teachings of Nectar of Devotion. So yes, these 50 qualities of the jivas are explained there. Also Krishna has these qualities, but unlimited. The demigods have these 50 qualities to a high extent, and the living entity to a limited extent. Of course, when we become devotees, Yasti Bhakti Bhagavata Kinshana, then when one becomes devotee, he develops all good qualities. He develops all these qualities like the demigods. Therefore, Prabhupada many times compares pure devotees to demigods also. They have the same qualities. But it's important to understand these different categories, and then one will cease making these offenses. Because if one mixes that up, then out of that ignorance, one makes offenses. Therefore, knowledge is very important to avoid these offenses. Good. We are going back to the next offense, and that is here. The offense is to disobey the instructions of the spiritual master. It's Guru Avakya. It's called this offense. To disobey the instructions of the spiritual master. This is very important, that to avoid this offense, because if one commits this offense, then of course one becomes asar, the scripture says, useless. So Prabhupada was once asked by his disciples, why am I translating these books in the middle of the night, giving up my sleep? It's for you to read them. If you are not reading my books, then go avakya, It is an offense to the spiritual master. Of course, this instruction is not just meant for Prabhupada's disciples, it's meant for all practicing members of ISKCON. Because this is a very important principle. In Bhagavad Gita and in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Prabhupada explains the importance of following the instructions of the spiritual master. So Prabhupada says, service in Krishna consciousness is, however, a best practice under the able guidance of a spiritual master, who is a bona fide representative of Krishna, and who knows the nature of the student, and who can guide him to act in Krishna consciousness. As such, to be well versed in Krishna consciousness, one has to act firmly and obey the representative of Krishna. And one should accept the instruction of the bona fide spiritual master as one's mission in life. So this order of the spiritual master is the active principle in spiritual life. Anyone who disobeys the order of the spiritual master immediately becomes asar, useless. Persons who strictly follow the orders of the spiritual master are useful in executing the will of the Supreme, and persons who deviate from the strict order of the spiritual master are useless. This in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, chapter 12, text 10. So then in another verse in the Madhya Lila, chapter 10, text 17, Prabhupada explains, this is the way to advance his spiritual life. One must accept the words of an acharya, a bona fide spiritual master, to clear the path of spiritual advancement. This is the secret of success. However, one's guide must be the spiritual master, who is actually an unalloyed devotee, strictly following the instructions of the previous acharya without deviation. So the spiritual master must follow also the instructions of his spiritual master without deviation. And whatever the spiritual master says must be accepted by the disciple. Only this is certain. This is the Vedic system. Of course, in the verse 434, Tat vina panapatna pariprishna sevya upadiksanti teganam jnanas tat vadakshina. The verse that says that one must approach a spiritual master, serve him with humility and inquire from him. There in the purpose, Prabhupada says that yes, one must follow the order of the spiritual master, but a blind following is condemned. So that's important. That not blind following. Understand the principle and contemplate how to apply it in our lives, and then apply it. So it requires intelligence. It's not like once a guru was sitting on a horse because he was old, and he had a hat on his head because the sun was shining, and his disciples were following the horse, were following the spiritual master. At a certain moment there was a wind, and the head was blown away from the head of the spiritual master, and it fell on the ground. And the disciples did not do anything. And the spiritual master had, why are you not taking my head? And the instructors and the disciples said, oh, Guru Maharaj, you didn't instruct us. So and then the spiritual master instructed them and said, whatever falls off the horse, take it up and give it to me. So they took the head and gave it to the spiritual master, put it on his head, and he continues riding on the horse. Not at a certain moment, again, wind came and his head was blown up from his head and fell on the ground. So one disciple took the head. At that time, the horse started to pass through, and he put the head and under the back of the horse and got all the stool in the head and gave it to the spiritual master. So that is blind following. That is condemned. So Prabhupada says, following the instruction of the spiritual master, this is the way to advance in spiritual science. One must accept the words of an acharya, a bona fide spiritual master, to clear the path for spiritual advancement. So that this is the secret of success. However, one's guide must be a spiritual master who is actually an unalloyed devotee, strictly following the instructions of the previous acharyas without deviation. Whatever the spiritual master says must be accepted by the disciple. That is a Vedic system. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj gives a similar comment. He says, when one hears from the mouth of the spiritual master is called Shrauta Vakya, which indicates that the disciple must carry out the spiritual master instructions without deviation. That, of course, also, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur does in Bhagavad Gita 241 in the purport. A disciple must accept the words of his spiritual master as his life and soul. So, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu confirms this by saying that since his spiritual master ordered him only to chant the holy name, he always chanted the Hare Krishna mantra according to his direction. That's what Lord Chaitanya said. Krishna mantra japa sada, e mantra sah. That, yeah. Yes. There are many, many comments on this. That, but of course, for all of us, Srila Prabhupada is the preeminent Siksha Guru and Jagat Guru. Because ISKCON is a multi-guru institution, and the ISKCON gurus, they are all representative of Srila Prabhupada. So Prabhupada remains the main instructor for us. That, because it's a duty of an ISKCON guru to explain the teachings of the founder Acharya and engage the disciples in Srila Prabhupada's mission. That, so as such, all instructions in Prabhupada's books, this is all the duty of all ISKCON disciples to follow them. Not just the first generation disciples. So Prabhupada set standards which we need to maintain. And one of the primary instructions is that all members in ISKCON, they should daily chant a minimum of 16 rounds with beats. I remember Bhakti Charamaj, he gave a disciple initiation in England, and he ordered them to chant 4 rounds a day instead of 16. So one can say, oh, that is, Prabhupada said a minimum of 16 rounds. But this disciple was deaf. He was speech impaired. He had limitations due to a brain misfunction. Chanting 1 round of the mantra would take him 1 hour. So as such, chanting 4 rounds means chanting 4 hours. So that's an exception. But otherwise, we need to follow these instructions, 16 rounds. That's very important, because that we discussed that. I'm a member of the Shastak Advisory Council, and when we discussed the Gayatri paper, this thing came up. Prabhupada's instructions, 16 rounds, chanting 16 rounds, and follow the 4 regulative principles. But then some ISKCON gurus, they give extra things. Like on Ekadashi, you should chant 25 rounds. Or other instructions. All the other instructions can be given, but not as initiation vows. Otherwise, one creates another sampradaya. That's dangerous. So there's a difference that it should not be given as initiation vows. Otherwise, all gurus will create all different situations. No, we have to stick to what Prabhupada gives. We know to our Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, Guru Parampara, it's linked not to Siksha, but it's linked to Siksha, not by Diksha. So it's said in the Bhagavatam, Acharya Mam Vijnanam. And Krishna says, the spiritual master, the Guru, is very dear to me. Krishna doesn't make a distinction between Siksha Guru and Diksha Guru. And our Guru Parampara is mostly Siksha. So if we start to make a difference between Diksha and Siksha Guru, that's an offense. Then we are committing this offense, this third offense. That's very dangerous. And because this causes also groupism. Bhakti Sharma was very much aware of that, and he was against that, to avoid this, because this is a source of so many problems in our movement. So, yes, we should give the same respect to Diksha Guru and Shiksha Guru. If we recognize the position of ISKCON gurus and all senior and advanced devotees in ISKCON, that they are all representatives and are equal servants of the founder Acharya, then we can avoid this. Of course, Prabhupada has a unique position, that he's a founder Acharya. His personal standards and principles, they set the standard that Prabhupada's spirit pervades the institution. It's the essence of our culture. Prabhupada remains present generation after generation, that he's the single prominent Siksha Guru, immanent in the life of each and every ISKCON devotee. That he has a perpetual, indwelling, active, guiding, and direct presence. He's the soul of ISKCON. Srila Prabhupada himself continues to act in this world if we are his instrument. ISKCON is his body. If we continue following his instructions, Prabhupada will preach to us, to ISKCON. We distribute his books, Prabhupada is preaching. Because, of course, there's a history in ISKCON. Before there was the zonal Acharya system, and every zone had one guru, and everyone had to take initiation from this school, no choice. That was established in 1979. And by that, but the integrity of ISKCON came in jeopardy. Therefore, the system was abolished. But if we put Prabhupada in the center, what will be the results? Generation after generation will be unable to receive the special mercy offered by Prabhupada. The path to Godhead will become ever increasingly traveled. When we take full shelter of Srila Prabhupada as our Siksha Guru, that all teachers in ISKCON on various levels will be able to authentically convey Srila Prabhupada's real teachings and give proper guidance, give proper shelter, protect all. And if we put Prabhupada in the center, ISKCON will be united and have integrity. ISKCON's teachings will remain consistent over space and time. So Prabhupada's realized knowledge will not only be preserved but also developed. His books will remain future development to be realized. Srila Prabhupada's eyes will always remain the lens to which we see all the previous acharyas. So this are so far on the third offense. The third offense is also related to the first offense, because if you blaspheme, do not follow the instruction of the spiritual master, you commit also the first offense, because the spiritual master is also a devotee who is broadcasting the glories of the holy name. So these are the third three offenses which we have been discussing today. So please let me know if you have any questions.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, can I ask a question?
Yes, Krishna, John.
Thank you. Thank you, Maharaj. You went quite deep into explaining these offenses. And so there's this little confusion regarding the principle of our parampara being mainly based on Siksha. Therefore, we see in the parampara that Bhaktivinoda Thakur's guru has been mentioned as Jagannath Das Babaji, although he is not exactly his Diksha Guru, and maybe a couple of other instances like that. So there it is apparent that Siksha is more important than Diksha. But then there's also the statement that both Siksha Guru and Diksha Guru are equal. So if they are equal, then why is the Diksha Guru's name not mentioned in the parampara? So it apparently the Siksha Guru is more important than Diksha Guru. How do we understand this?
Yeah, Diksha and Siksha are not different. Diksha, there is a fire sacrifice, the spiritual master gives a name. But what is the connection with the spiritual master? Is following his instructions. Shiksha. The Diksha Guru gives Shiksha. Usually, traditionally, the Shiksha Guru will later become the Diksha Guru of the disciple. The Vakta Pradakshaka Guru, the first Guru you meet who instructs you in spiritual life, then many times naturally becomes the Diksha Guru. So Diksha means giving Shiksha. That is the connection. it's not the fire sacrifice, because that is a big misunderstanding in our movement. One thinks that, oh, I'm sitting at a fire sacrifice, I get a name, and I get rid of all my karma. That it doesn't work like that. That the connection with the spiritual master, initiation means starting to follow the instructions of the spiritual master. That is the initiation, not a fire sacrifice. Starting to follow the instructions of the spiritual master. And what happens when you do that? So first, that Vidi Panepatne Pariprashna Sevya Upatek Shantitejanam Janinas Tat Vadakshibi. The one approaches the spiritual master and he renders service to him, asks questions in all humility. What happens when one does that, when one follows these instructions of the spiritual master? Gatvatgra napunarmam evan yasyasi pandava yena bhutani ashanani dakshashi atmani atomai. So then, after getting this knowledge, that then one comes out of illusion. One starts to see that all living beings are not their body, they are part and parcels of Krishna, and they belong to Krishna. That's the first realization. The next realization is Apsitasa Pabyo Sarvabyo Papakitama Sarvagana Plavenima Vichinam Santarishasi. That then you come on the boat of transcendental knowledge and you are able to cross over the ocean of miseries. So you follow the instructions of spiritual master and you become gradually Krishna conscious. And then what happens? Yadaim tamso samido ugnir basma sako utarana chernachnir sarvakarmani basma sako ute tata. As blazing fire turns firewood to ashes, O Arjuna, so does the fire of knowledge burn to ashes all the reactions to your material activities. There it happens. If you follow the instructions, then you come on the boat of transcendental knowledge, and then your reactions of your past activities are burnt by following the instructions of the spiritual master. That's how it works, and not other ways. It's not that the sacrifice is there, and you think you get rid of all your karma, and then you say to Guru Maharaj, "Thank you, Guru Maharaj. I will know you. I will contact you again when I need you. Now I'm getting rid of my karma." It doesn't work like that. That is an imagination. We sing every day to the Guru that that's Divyagan rite pokasito. But to the Divyagan, the realized knowledge appears in the heart by following the instruction of the spiritual master. It's the same thing. We sing it every day. So it's by Siksha is the real thing. Diksha is a formality. And that should be understood. That because sometimes Vaishnava etiquette is not properly understood in that way. Like a Grihastha who functions as spiritual master, that he can be called by the disciples Maharaj, even if he's a Grihastha, because he's Guru Maharaj, he's a spiritual master. But it's not that one becomes initiating spiritual master in ISKCON that everyone can call him Guru Maharaj. No, only the disciples can do that. Otherwise, Jagannath Das Babaji we cannot call him Maharaj because he's only a Shiksha Guru. So it doesn't make sense. We have to be very careful with these things, this etiquette, and understanding the philosophy that karma is burnt, according to Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, by this knowledge, by realizing the knowledge. When we realize the knowledge, by following the instructions of the spiritual master. So that is to be clarified, that Shiksha and Diksha are the same, should be given the same respect. And we see also Guru Maharaj, when disciples would give him respect and his godbrothers would be there, he would ask the disciples to offer also obeisance to his godbrothers, because that is the etiquette that the spiritual master never thinks he's a spiritual master. The spiritual master thinks I'm a representative of my spiritual master, and it's my service to my Guru might send me all these disciples, and I have to try to educate them. Anyway, these are a few words, Krishna Arjan Prabhu. Does that help?
Yes, Maharaj, they are quite very insightful, very thoughtful. Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah. Someone else has questions? Good. Then our time is over, I think. So next week I'm traveling. We will have to skip 1 week, but the week after, on Wednesday evening, we continue. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Jai Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna.